Have you ever made a decision in anger only to regret it later? Anger can feel powerful in the moment, but it often blinds us and pushes us toward choices we wish we could undo. Today's story is about a young king who learned the hard way that wisdom grows not from rage, but from patience and calm thinking. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a young king named David. At just 25, he inherited the throne after the death of his father. David was strong and full of energy, but also inexperienced. Fortunately, he had been raised under the guidance of Edward, his beloved teacher. Edward had taught him lessons not just from books, but from life itself. Lessons about kindness, patience, and the importance of wisdom. After the king's father passed away, Edward became David's most trusted advisor, serving as chief minister of the kingdom. For a while, everything went well. The kingdom was peaceful and prosperous, until one year a terrible food crisis struck. It happened because Edward had miscalculated the weather forecast, and the crops suffered. Though the mistake was not intentional, David felt angry and betrayed. Blinded by his emotions, he shouted, "Leave my kingdom and never return!" The words cut like a sword. Edward, loyal to the end, bowed his head and obeyed. With a heavy heart, he left the palace where he had spent his life and settled in a distant village. There, he chose to live simply as a farmer, even though he had wealth. He worked the land, shared meals with the villagers, and quickly became known for his wisdom and fairness. The villagers came to him for advice on farming, conflicts, and family matters. Edward found peace in serving others quietly. Meanwhile, back in the palace, King David was restless. Without Edward's wisdom, decisions became harder, problems grew heavier, loneliness filled the royal halls. Day after day, regret gnawed at David. He realized his anger had driven away the one man he needed most. At last, he decided to search for Edward. Soldiers were sent across the kingdom, but no one knew where Edward had gone. One night, as David remembered Edward's clever lessons, inspiration struck. If Edward was still alive, he thought, his wisdom would reveal itself. So David sent a challenge across the kingdom. To every village, he delivered a letter and a clay jar. The message was simple. Return this jar filled with wisdom within 1 month. If you cannot, fill it with jewels instead. When the strange letter arrived in Edward's village, the villagers panicked. They had no jewels. "What shall we do?" they cried. "How can wisdom fit inside a jar?" They ran to Edward, their only hope. Edward listened calmly and said, "Give me the jar. Do not worry. By the end of the month, it will be filled with wisdom." The villagers trusted him and left the jar in his care. Days passed. Edward tended his small farm in silence. Then one morning he noticed a tender pumpkin vine curling through the soil. He smiled and placed the jar gently over a tiny pumpkin, leaving it attached to the vine. Each day he watered it patiently. Slowly, the pumpkin grew and grew until it completely filled the jar. At last, Edward cut the vine and sealed the jar. Inside was a full, ripe pumpkin that could never be removed. When the jar was brought before King David, he was astonished. "Wisdom cannot be captured in words alone," he murmured. "But this shows patience, creativity, and thoughtfulness. Only Edward could have done this." At that moment, David's pride melted away. He saddled his horse and set out himself to find the mentor he had wronged. His heart carried both sorrow and hope. Sorrow for the mistake and hope for forgiveness. This story reminds us of two powerful truths. First, never make decisions in the heat of anger. Strong emotions cloud the mind and can cause wounds that last a lifetime. Second, wisdom often comes quietly, through patience, calmness, and steady thought. A peaceful mind finds solutions that anger will never see.